thought I'd bring some toys on stage. Always lots of fun. All right, I'll jump right into it. We use photos every day, and it's sometimes to remember important moments, such as this is me after brain surgery with my family. But we can also use photos for silly things, such as my friends really enjoyed these graduation photos, which are truly my graduation photos, believe it or not. And in today's world of having phones and cameras on us at all times, we can use this to share experiences. So for example, I'm here, I have a camera, and you're there. I'd love to share this experience with you with a selfie. And I've been doing this at talks, and I want to see who can have the goofiest look. So can you indulge me for just a quick second? Okay, ready? So everybody do something that you think is goofy in your mind that shows your goofiness off. Ready? Woohoo! All right, I'll take a few, and I'll share this with you after, okay? So I just want to use this as an example because today's talk is going to be about, could selfies actually save us? Most people think selfies are selfish, but what about if we're talking of medical selfies? And what is a medical selfie? Well, if we go back to this photo, let's look at it as a medical selfie. So if we zoom in here, this is my repaired skull. Go to my brain. This is the MRI. That's actually a large cancerous brain tumor. This is my brain being cut open. If we actually dive into the pathology of it, this is the astrocytoma. We go into the astrocyte, into the IDH1 mutated protein. It was a point mutation into my genetic sequence, and it was a single letter. It was a G that turned to an A. So in 30 seconds, I can explain to you what I went through, right? And yeah, this is what my brain looked like last summer in 2014. And selfies don't just have to be images. They could be 3D representations, or they could be printed. So this is a one-to-one scale copy of what they cut out of my head, about 10% of my brain last summer. And imagine if you go to the hospital, instead of having a terrible experience in the MRI scanner, what if you could actually go out and press a button on your phone and say, print me my skull? And then the doctor could go in and say, here's how we're going to do the surgery. We're going to go like this. We're going to cut out that part of your brain, and we're going to remove this tumor. And I said, oh, okay, that makes sense. And it's empowering to me as a patient to be able to do that. I was able to take this file and print out and make salt and pepper shakers for my family. I'm not joking. I gave these to all my relatives as Christmas tree ornaments. I'm serious. And why can't we interact with that data better, right? And on the research front, if we get away from not just using single material prints, we can print with multi-material. So for example, I've got this one, which is printed with gradient properties. So we can actually have gradients of stiffness, of opacity, of conductivity. In the future, medical students could dissect printed versions of themselves. Wouldn't that be amazing if you go to the hospital and you have the option to download a biology textbook that has your images in it, your pathology, your cells, right? There's amazing potentials here. So this is what my cancer actually looked like. And yes, it was an astrocytoma tumor, and this is truly a selfie because I took the picture myself. And it was really fascinating, not only to get new information and see the heterogeneity of the tumor myself, but I could send this out and get second opinions. I could get thousands of opinions when I post it online. And if I share that data, I'm not just helping myself, I'm explaining to my friends and family what's happening, and I can help medical science by sharing it with the general public. And selfies don't just have to be from medical situations, but they can be external from the hospital. So for example, this is a real situation for me. I'm still on chemo. I have 3 months left of chemo. And I feel it in my stomach. So I thought, what's happening to the microbiome? And I'm not nearly as an expert as the talks earlier today on the microbiome, but I still took little samples of my poop before chemo, during chemo, and after chemo, and you could see the huge changes. So could we make healthcare a two-way street? So as a patient, I could give that data to the system, right? Could add more information. Could sharing our medical selfies actually save us? And there's huge benefits here. I'm going to be talking about today the benefits for patients, for hospitals, for medical science, and how if we focus on a patient-centric view of healthcare, that's where the future is going. So let me just pause for a second and explain why I'm here. I am not in healthcare. My background is in mechanical engineering and synthetic biology. And as a kid, when I was growing up, as I'm sure everyone in this audience was, we were curious. right? I was actually looking at brains when I was 10 years old. That curiosity took me to MIT, and I'm currently under the lab of Professor Neri Oxman at the MIT Media Lab, and I work on how to make things. And so, for example, I work on making things from buildings to bacteria. This is actually a large-scale 3D printer to print a house in a day. We're actually printing with insulation, with concrete, and even with glass. Here's metal printing. We can get from the building scale right down to the micro scale. We're actually also able to print microfluidics and control biology. We can actually print large wearable structures, and this is where the future is going. It's in designing biology. But that's not why I'm here today. I'm here because of a personal story. As you might have gathered, I'm a huge dork, right? And I always love data, so I volunteer for studies. And I highly recommend doing this if you can. You'll help science, and who knows, it could save your life. I volunteered in 2007 for a brain fMRI study. It was looking at fear. I did the study, I asked for the data back, and they said, oh, by the way, there's a small abnormality that we found in the frontal left lobe. You might want to check it out. So I got the data back, and this is what it looked like. I took it to a neurologist. They got a rescan. They didn't know what it was. So I get it checked in a few years. Not symptomatic, no worries. Got it rechecked in 2010, hadn't changed. They weren't really concerned. They still didn't know what it was. So I thought, okay, great. Went about my business, went to MIT. Last summer, I started to smell a very faint vinegar smell for a few seconds a day. After the third day of that, I was in my bedroom, and I thought, there's no vinegar here. And I looked at the data, and I thought, holy cow, that's close to my smell center of the brain. That might be linked. I went to the doctors. They weren't really concerned. I pushed, and they said, okay, we'll book a scan. And they booked it for a month later because they were not concerned. This is what it looked like. It was 3 weeks later that it was cut out of my head in a 10-hour awake brain surgery. It was in the frontal left lobe. They told me, you know what? This might wreck your language center. It might wreck your personality. We're going to have you awake for the surgery talking so that we can see when it affects your language center. So it was an amazing surgical team that I got to work with, Dr. Eno Kioka at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. And of course, I wanted to know what was going to happen, so I asked if it could be videotaped. And he was really kind enough to allow that. It's very graphic, but I'm going to ask you guys, are you curious to see it? Okay, close your eyes if you do not want to see this. This is going to be graphic. Okay, this is a 10-hour awake brain surgery in 30 seconds, and if the volume's up, you'll hear me talking about how I met my girlfriend, who's actually in this audience right now. So here they're putting the iodine on, they're making the initial cut, removing that part of the skull.
Talk to us again.
Not running in a class called 2009.
And you can see they're doing an intraoperative MRI during the process, sewing me back together. And yeah, it was a fascinating, surreal experience. And the ability for me to have a video afterwards to see it was really empowering as a patient, not only for me personally to understand what they did, but to share it, to share with friends, to generate support for other patients who have been contacting me saying, we're so grateful you shared this, we now understand what you went through, and what we'll be going through. So this was before and after. It was a successful surgery, and I got extremely lucky. 3 days later, I was back on MIT campus. I did have issues. I had spelling issues with my language center. I lost about 50% of my sense of smell. I have sleep issues. But generally, I'm very happy, and my family really can't tell the difference between me before and after. I did proton radiation, and of course, I had to take a selfie, because that's what I like to do. So this is what a proton selfie looks like. This is what a picture of protons at hundreds of millions of miles per hour shot at you looks like. This is the backscatter radiation, just captured by a standard phone inside a particle accelerator. So, I mean, even if it's not useful at all, it's interesting, right? The more a patient is interested and engaged, the better care they're going to take of themselves. But what did I learn? And I learned a huge amount of data, and I'm not going to dive into it, but it's about 100 gigabytes to put it in context. And if you're interested, it's all open on my website. And I originally did this just for friends and family, to show what I was going through. That's the only reason I was posting it. But the most important thing that I learned from the experience was not the data, it was how difficult the process was. I couldn't believe it. I had no idea before being in this situation that the patient had the least access of everyone. There was low barriers everywhere, and a low barrier to a patient is a mountain. There was complex data, and one of the interesting things is there's probably doctors in the audience right now who are from Brigham and Women's Hospital or Dana-Farber, and if they have a laptop, they could go on right now onto the internet, see all my MRI scans in a nice history format. But for me, I have to write in a form, wait, comes in the mail, 10, 20, 30 CDs. I don't even have a CD reader, right? It's crazy. And there's legal gray areas everywhere. For example, I was asked, and I was very happy to do this for science, to donate part of my brain tumor tissue for full genetic sequencing for research. It was done by my hospital and by researchers at my university, and I was thrilled to help out with science, under the impression I would get access to the data. Right now, my doctors can see my genome, my university colleagues can see my genome, but I still can't. It's crazy, right? I'm giving you my brain. I can't even have a little USB stick? Come on. Why can they see my future and not me? And there's conflicting policies with HIPAA and CLIA that are preventing this. So I originally just posted that data just for friends and family, but there's a professor at MIT studying this strain of cancer, invited me to give a 5-minute patient perspective talk. So I said, sure, why not? The talk was really well received. I was asked to give another, and I couldn't believe it, but on my favorite day, which is April Fool's Day, believe it or not, there was a New York Times article published. And I couldn't believe it. I thought the joke was on me. I got over 1,000 emails that day. And they were from patients and doctors and researchers. And they all said, this matters. This is a big deal. So I said, OK, great. I didn't realize the scale of this issue, but I'll start putting a voice to it. So I did 49 days of combined proton radiation and chemotherapy. And the first day after treatment, I actually couldn't believe it. I got invited to the White House. And I was a little worried of setting off the radiation detectors because I literally came out of the proton accelerator and went straight to the White House. And yes, it did actually make me slightly radioactive, but luckily they didn't catch it. So it was not dangerous, trust me. And of course, had to take a selfie because that's just what I do to record things. I was very happy. The White House is probably the best medicine to finish treatment on, let me tell you. But why couldn't we have a hospital share button, right? It doesn't have to be sharing with everybody. If you don't want to share, you don't need to. But if you want to share with yourself, with other doctors, with your family, with the general research community, why can't you? It seems silly, right? And it wouldn't just benefit me, it would benefit friends and family with understanding, doctors who would be engaged, scientists would have data with context, and hospitals could get feedback. And we could make it a two-way street. And you guys are all familiar with this, so I'm not going to dive into the evidence, but Open Notes showed that, yes, if patients have full access to their doctor's notes, they take better care of themselves. They will actually choose providers based on having that access. All of the hospitals who participated in these programs kept them going. And yeah, if the tools are simple enough, people will share. So Apple's Research Kit, a great example. The first week, over 50,000 people joined because it was very simple as the press of a button, and over 75% of them were willing to share their data. So if we have access that's patient-centric and clear, people will do it. And so this is what I've been pushing for, and with the Meaningful Use Phase 3, it was provided as an option. You could even have an e-patient portal or an API. And I said, no, e-patient portals suck. They're broken. When I used mine to download my e-patient summary, you wouldn't even have been able to tell that I had surgery or proton radiation for brain cancer. So if we push, we could have an API under patient control. What this would let you do is have a key to your data, right? This lets the free market and capitalism drive the innovation, right? With this, we could have Google Maps for health. We could have Facebook. We'd have Dropbox for health. We could push all that burden into finding incentives to the free market. So it's really, really powerful. The possibilities, we could cure diseases by pressing a share button. You could become an author on a paper by saying, yeah, share my blood results. Sure, OK. Your selfies could save you, right? And the more engaged a patient is, the better care they take of themselves. And we're not talking a million-person cohort like the NIH. Facebook's got over 1.5 billion people. If only 0.001% wanted to share their data, it'd be the biggest medical study in history, right? So there's huge, huge possibilities here. And I was very excited that actually last month, the final rule on Meaningful Use Phase 3 came out. And yes, it requires an API by 2018. So it's very, very exciting. Progress is being made. So there's a long road ahead still, though. So there's interoperability standards, there's liabilities that are complex, and there's policies. If you want to participate in this, I would write a comment on the new Meaningful Use Phase 3. It's open for another 30 days if you want to write a comment. Same with the Common Rule. There's a brand new Common Rule out which dictates how human subject research is done. The new Common Rule is great in many ways, but it also has an exemption for studies to not require IRB review if they guarantee patients will not get back their data. Doesn't that sound crazy? So, yeah, I understand you want some studies to be able to move quickly, and if there's no risk to the patient, you want to get through that process as fast as possible, but there should be an expedited review if you guarantee patients get back data, not the opposite, right? There's protectionism, there's paternalism still in the system. So there's still a long road ahead, and if you want to support, definitely please reach out on the policy side. I wanted to end on a note that's very personal that a lot of researchers don't recognize, which is data generates support. Support is medicine. It's a point not often clarified. And I want to show you what that means by when I put out all these videos and all this data, my friends responded, my family responded. They sent it out to TV shows that I was a fan of. I couldn't believe this. And this is what I saw right before I went into surgery.
Happy brain surgery, Steve.
Hey, Steve, it's Jimmy Kimmel.
We hope you get better.
T-shirts.
These?
Number 1 and number 2.
Steve Dance.
Pool time 2.
Yeah. And that, once you get there.
Happy brain surgery to you. Happy brain surgery to you.
So I'm going to end on this on a very personal note, but first I have to, of course, say stay curious, make healthcare a two-way street. And I've got a lot of references I just want to quickly put on the screen because I'm still a student and I have a lot of people to thank, friends and family, surgeons, medical research, and of course citations on all the images they used and the studies. And I wanted to end on a very personal note. I want you to switch shoes with me because I was just like you last year. No symptoms, and then you're told in 3 weeks they're going to cut out 10% of your brain? What do you do, right? Especially when it's going to affect your language and might get rid of your personality. That's scary, right? So I sent out an email right before the surgery, and I wanted to end with the last 3 sentences that I wrote in that email. Very genuine, true words, and I figured it would be the right way to end this talk. All right. Perspective is everything, and switching shoes yields the most powerful thoughts. Family and friends are what remain when the world blurs. I was even talking about open source data then. Gather data as often as possible and share it with the world. It could save your life one day. I never would have gone to the neurological folks if I didn't have the open data from the research scan. And the last sentence was, the world is a lovely, splendid, and fascinating place, but most of all to me, it's beautifully curious. So with that, I'd love to thank you and thank Daniel and thank the university. Okay. That's far too kind. Thank you. I'm not. Yeah, they've already canceled my mic, but I want to make a statement that coming here, I feel like I shouldn't be here because all I've done is stayed alive. That's all I've done. Every other speaker is keeping me alive. So I want to thank you guys again, and I'm very honored to be here.